What's up, guys? Today I'm going to change out the rear wheel bearings on my two-wheel drive 2005 Toyota Tundra. This is a job I've never completed before, so I did what you're doing now. I watched a couple YouTube videos to get an idea of how to do it, and it definitely looks like something within my scope of work that I can complete. So I purchased these Beck R&Lee sets from Rock Auto. They were about $40 per side. Comes with a bearing. This is a seal that goes inside the diff. This is a seal that these two actually are attached to the drum unit. These are the two locking collars, one for the bearing and one for the ABS ring. So it has everything you need to replace the bearing. One thing that makes this job a lot easier, I've noticed, is the correct tools. Some people online had made their own tools which kind of replicate this. I wasn't about to do that. This is a lot easier to find this. I found this at the time on eBay for about $150. It was the cheapest I found. This top piece allows you to remove the ABS ring. It actually allows you to save it, but still it'll help us get it off easier without trying to grind it and cut it off. This piece allows us to remove the bearing. This set also has a complete list of instructions, which is really cool if you hadn't watched a video. And I had already read through it, and those instructions make it really easy to get through, and it's essentially the same process, it looks like, as what I've seen on videos online. This piece is supposed to fit into your press. It doesn't fit into my press. I have a 20-ton from Harbor Freight. It's not going to fit in between here, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. I'm going to worry about that when I get to that point. I'm going to see if I can get the axle shafts off first. What I'm thinking I might need to do is head down to a local store like Ace Hardware. Say I just find like 2 thick pieces of metal, because there's obviously room to fit bigger pieces here. So if I just, it's not much, maybe like 1/2 inch on each side I need it to fit. So I'm thinking if I have 2 long pieces of metal, I could slide it in there and then squeeze those tight and then try that. It hopefully should suffice. I'm gonna worry about that when I get there and let you know how that works out for me, if it does work out for me. First, go ahead and remove your wheel. Next, make sure your parking brake is off. With the parking brake disengaged, we can now remove the cable. You have this little clip, and mine's shot way over there somewhere, and this little pin. Now to get the rotor off, you have a couple bolts that fit in here. I said rotor, but I meant drum. Get those fed in here. This will help push off the drum from the shoes. This one is a little weird right there. There we go. I'm not sure the thread pitch. I believe it's an M8 by 1.25 for what I'm using here. Next, we need to remove the ABS plug. This is easy, just put a screwdriver in here. It'll pry it back, and then you can just slide it up. Well, it's supposed to be easy. There we go. Now we want to remove the brake line. It's better to use a flare nut wrench, that way you don't risk chance of stripping it. This is a 10mm. Once I have that loose, I am going to go ahead and jam in there. This is a little plug that came in an older brake line kit. So once I pull it off, I'll just jam this in there as hard as possible just to stop it from leaking and losing any more fluid, and I'll leave it in there while I continue to work on the job. And then to get the axle shaft removed, you have to remove the 4 14mm nuts on the back. You'll see 2 on this side. You'll see the 3rd one there. The other one is just right on that side as well. At this point, you can now remove the axle shaft. Watching some videos and reading some stuff online, people were saying you need to potentially drain the diff. I have not yet. I do want to change the fluid, I just haven't drained it. I wanted to try it. So I'm going to pull the axle shaft out along with the whole drum. We'll see what kind of fluid drips out. So there wasn't a lot you can see in here. I'm not sure if you guys can make out the color of that. It looks a little, like, I guess grayish. It's probably definitely in need of replacement. I have no idea when or if it's ever been changed. Here's a look at that bearing. Look how much play there is. Let me hold this still. You can see it right there. Just from moving the axle shaft around from the drum assembly. That is quite a bit. Take a look at this. This is the, obviously, can you guys see how much play there is in this bearing? Let's see if I can do it like this. Can you see it as well? It's a little easier because I can leave that still. Before we get to removing the ABS sensor ring, the instructions on here say to make sure you know exactly where it goes. So I'm just going to measure off of the bearing, and off of this sitting flat on the bearing, it looks like it's exactly at 3/4 of an inch from this lip to the bearing itself. So I'm going to keep that measurement, 3/4. I think that should be solid for once I have everything pressed back onto here. The next step here, when looking at the other side, this one's easily accessible. Put one of the nuts back on here, thread it to the top. Then we need to hammer this one through. The reason why I chose that one, it's easy for me to grab on the opposite side. And the reason we need to do that is the tool that slides down over this to get the ring off needs one of those removed so we can get this in there. With all 4 studs, I'm gonna have it on this side, you cannot get it in anywhere. So you have to just remove one so we can get that removed. Okay, now this piece actually fits into my press. I was able to feed it down from the top. I'm just using 2 arbor plates. They're actually circular, so it fits perfectly up against this. I have the height set. The bottom is in there. Now we're gonna get this ring removed. Underneath, I placed a couple of towels because it's gonna fall and hit it. A couple of towels, piece of cardboard. I think that should be enough to sustain. I don't want to just damage my floor or potentially anything on the drum while I press out that ring. At this point, we now need to get the snap ring removed. There we go. Now we need to reinsert that bolt that we had removed. And the reason we're doing that is we're now inserting this tool. Now I talked about this fitting on my press, and I actually had the wrong side lined up to the press. This side is even larger, so I'm definitely not going to be able to fit this into my press, but this tool slides down just like that. Now we need to put those bolts on and tighten this up. What I did there, cut off the handles, that way I could pull it apart. Of course I had to cut the inner part of my press. But in doing that, I am able to fit that in there. Let me show you exactly how that works. So obviously it's heavy, so make sure you hang on to it. Exactly what I did. Fit it in there, this guy on. It's funny when I squeeze them together, it looks like it's essentially back to its original position, if not even more. There's space here, but it's just the flange here doesn't allow it to fit. So what I want to do, I'm going to try it like this. I think it'll work. I don't see an issue, but we're going to try it and see if we can get this pushed out with the way that I cut open my press. Still have the towels and the cardboard down there. There it drops. At this point, we should now be able to remove the bearing. The bearing is not pressed into the drum, it's pressed onto the axle shaft. So sometimes you can just reach in here and slide it out. If you're having trouble with that, take your shaft, slide it on there. That'll get it right out for you. Now comes the reassembly. Since we use the tool, we're able to save the old ABS ring. Now you can use that if you want. You can use the new one. They look identical. I'll probably just stick to the original one. This might be the original Toyota one. And of course you have the two locking rings. This rubber gasket it came with, I'll show you that when we're about to install it. But next step, we want to clean inside of there, and then this seal goes right here onto this side. Once you get it removed, we can go ahead and install that. I think we can just push it on with our hands. We're gonna give that a shot.
I remember how this shit comes off.
Saw a really nice method online that was really smart. They used the drum itself. They took the axle shaft and we're gonna put it on here. Now the bearing already has like some lubricant all over. I think that's just for packaging. I'm gonna just leave it. I'm not gonna wipe it off. I don't see any reason to. We're gonna slide. Let me set this down, I'll show you. We're gonna slide the drum on next. Make sure your seal doesn't catch or bind. And then we're gonna slide the bearing on. And at this point, you now need a way to put the bearing on. People were using a pipe. I went and found this 10-foot pipe, and I haven't cut it because I like the fact that it's stronger and it weighs more being one piece than a smaller piece. This is a 1.5, is it still on here? It's a 1.5 inch inner diameter, and I measured it, and it lines up perfectly with the inner race. That way it's not going to touch any of the area where the bearing is itself. Let me get that on here and I'll show you how I'm going to install mine. There we go. And at that point, the bearing is now installed. And you can see where the C-clip goes, but first, we're gonna do the same method with one of the lock washers and then the C-clips. Let me finish both these up really quickly. First, we're gonna put on the locking washer. Same method with the pipe. Then your C-clip, just slide this down onto the axle shaft. and let the pipe do the work for you. And there we now have the bearing, the lock washer, and the C-clip installed. Your next step also is going to be your ABS ring, and then the other lock washer. Make sure you remember how far it was. Mine was 3/4 inch from face of the bearing to the bottom of this. So I'm going to install these the exact same way. When you're happy with where it's at, go ahead and put on the locking washer. And this is all ready to be reinstalled onto your vehicle. At this point, with the axle shaft ready, we have 2 remaining seals. This first one is just here on the outer lip. You can just get a pick and remove it. We're going to replace it since we got a new one. Second one was a little more difficult. I don't have that seal puller tool. You may have seen it. Kind of looks like an axe. It has 2 like round ends. You put in there and pry it out. I figured I would try just my crowbar, see if I can get it started and moved. Let's see, I'll try this side. Looked like I was catching it there. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Now this one's a little bit trickier to get in. It is a metal sleeve, so you just have to keep trying. Let me show you what I used. This, along with this, is kind of a really similar size. Kind of lines up against the seal. And then I'm using a 1 3/4 inch socket, like fits right in there. So that's how I'm going to try to get that hammered in. So with that one in, we are now ready to reinstall the axle shaft. I'm going to wipe it down, any kind of dust and dirt that may have gotten on there from me working on it. And start with your 4 nuts on the back, then move on to whatever else you feel like. I'm going to put the drum on, hook up the line, the brake line, and then the ABS sensor, and you are done. We're going to test it out, see if that noise persists. I'm going to get this put back together really quickly. I am not changing my fluid yet. I just want to take it for a test spin. I'll change the fluid on a different afternoon. I don't actually have fluid right now anyway. That's why I'm not going to change it, and that's why I didn't drain it. We're going to just give it a test spin and see how everything's worked out. And at this point, all you need to do is bleed both sides, put your wheels back on, and you're done with this job. It's really not too difficult for anyone with some decent mechanical experience. I would definitely recommend it. I know it can be pricey taking it somewhere for what can be a decently simple job, and it shouldn't take too long to get it finished, even as you're learning it along the way. All right, guys, so just got back from taking my truck for a drive. It is super smooth. There is zero noise anymore from those bearings, and I figured it would. They were creating a ton of noise, and like the noise I described earlier, just like a crunching sound over and over that sped up as you drove, that just like that. Now, a rundown on totals, $80 for the set of the bearings that came with everything that I showed earlier. $150 for the removal tools for the ABS ring removal and the bearing removal. I spent $45 for the pipe, so you're looking at $150, $195. So $275 total spent on parts, which really isn't that bad, and just doing the work myself. For me, now I could probably knock out a set within probably like 2 to 3 hours. I was able to finish up the second one very fast because my learning curve obviously went down when I already knew each step. So you could easily knock this out in a day if you're attempting this for the first time on your own. Definitely think it's a pretty straightforward job, and there's not a whole lot going on if you have the correct tools to remove, and this pipe made everything easier getting it off. Now, you know, this pipe still has the label on it. I still have the receipt. It's obviously, you know, it looks like that when you buy it. I think I'm just gonna return it. I have no need for it. I don't see a need just to keep it in my garage. If I ever need to do this job again, I will run right back over there and buy another pipe and potentially return it the next day. Same with the tools. I'm gonna hang on to those for now, just to make sure, like, you know, wheel bearings of different brands. I'm hoping it just lasts. If I don't have any problems in the next 6 months to a year, I may just throw those back up on eBay for a reduced price. Look up whatever one's the cheapest and knock it like $5 less. Sell those, because if I don't need them again anytime soon, I could just always purchase them again in the future, get my money back, and essentially have only paid for the bearings today. So something to consider if you are good at selling parts. I sell a lot of stuff on eBay, so it won't be too hard to get rid of those, I'm sure, especially if it's a less expensive price. And then I'm pretty sure I'm going to return the pipe. But I hope this helped you guys out today. I watched a handful of videos too. Just wanted to give you my take on it, especially for someone attempting this for the first time. And I definitely think if you have a little bit of confidence in the correct tools, you can knock it out yourself. Thanks for watching, guys. You take care.